Hi everybody, it's 9 o'clock and 9 o'clock is with me, Father Warner. We are in Tuesday of the second week of Easter, and our text today is taken from Acts chapter 4 verse 32 to 37. I've entitled today's teaching, Communism is not Communism. So let's read the text. Now the whole group of those who believed were of one heart and soul, and no one claimed private ownership of any possessions, but everything they owned was held in common. With great power the apostles gave their testimony to the resurrection of the Lord, and great grace was upon them all. There was not a needy person among them, for as many as owned lands or houses sold them and brought the proceeds of what was sold. They laid it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to each as any had need. There was a Levite, a native of Cyprus, Joseph, to whom the apostles gave the name Barnabas, which means the son of encouragement. He sold a field that belonged to him, then brought the money and laid it at the apostles' feet. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now, I think that what we learn from this text, what I call normally the takeaway from every text, must match the wonder and the awe of this beautiful passage taken from the Acts of the Apostles as we go through the text itself. The sense of this very strong community living in the early church almost seems, as the phrase says, too good to be true. Perhaps maybe it was too good to be true, as we will see just after this text in chapter 5 verse 1 to 6, the incident about Ananias and Sapphira. But a point is being made here. When we share, we show we care. Let me say that again. When we share, we show we care. And that's the point I want to make today, to talk about this great need for caring, and for those who can, to go beyond the need of caring, giving infinitely. Now, without a doubt, the early church lived a spirit of common fellowship, or as it was known in the Greek word for that common fellowship was koinonia. Koinonia. You see, this word koinonia appears almost 20 times in the Bible, and when you speak of koinonia, it refers to a twofold activity. A worshipping together, that's koinonia, and holding all the possessions that they had in common, as we read in Acts also chapter 2 verse 42 to 47, that's koinonia. While the common worship may not alarm many, because that's exactly what we do on a Sunday or on a weekday when we gather for the Eucharist, that really doesn't disturb anybody. If you say, let's worship in together, okay, people will come for that. The suggestion of holding all our possessions in common may send many scampering out of our churches, with the more capitalist minded calling such a move communism. See, the minute I say, okay, St. Stephen's Parish, all that you own, if you are a Catholic, belongs to a common fund, and as scripture says, we will give, they gave to one another, as, look at verse 35, they laid it at the apostles' feet, laid it at the parish priest's feet, okay, and it was distributed to each as any had need. I like that word, not as any had greed, but as any had need. But coming back to the text, because we might be accused of being communists, yeah? There is a difference between communism and communism. Communism, which several communist countries live their value system by, is when things are held commonly but under force or threat. Communism is when things are freely held together because they are given in love. The early church, when you see how it functioned, it encouraged, it exhorted its members to live this communism, this koinonia. But we also know from the story, as I said earlier, in Acts chapter 5, 1 to 6, that all in the early church did not subscribe entirely to this thought. And maybe as we will read later the story of Ananias and Sapphira, they were a worried bunch. What's going to happen to me tomorrow if I give everything to the church? What's going to happen? Who's going to look after me? Now, while the example of Barnabas, as we see today in verse 36 onwards, Barnabas was a native of Cyprus, a native of Crete. His example is given as a positive example of one who sold his land, he sold his field that belonged to him, he laid it at the feet of the apostles. There is, as I said in 5, 1 to 6, this story of a couple, and we know them as Ananias and Sapphira. What did Ananias and Sapphira do? They also were moved by koinonia. They had property which they sold, but we are told they kept some money back and they paid with their lives for not giving the entire money that they promised to the church. Now, as gruesome as this story sounds, it also reminds us that perhaps many found it very hard, as I said earlier, to make this adjustment from perhaps living a very affluent life to living a very simple life. And while they desired the Lord and they really felt the presence of Jesus in the early church, they also perhaps were drawn to their creature comforts, or they were not ready to let go of their creature comforts, or as I said earlier, they were afraid what's going to happen to us if we give our money to the church. Who will look after us? So giving up is never really easy, especially when you and I are tremendously attached, my dear friends, to the things that we have. I want to share with you something that I learned many years ago, a method that has encouraged me to let go. And remember that when you let go, it's always for the good of the other, not for yourself. But I learned this method of giving away. I must tell you, the other day, a couple in the parish, Godfrey and Maria, sent me some lovely Easter eggs, just to give an example. And Godfrey said to me, my cousin, and I don't know, I want to thank those wonderful people, made these lovely Easter eggs. And the next thing he said is, but you stop giving it away to everybody, they made it specially for you. I like the fact that people think of me as somebody who can give away very easily. And they know it, and my friends warn me, we're giving you this, don't you ever give it away. Where did I learn it from? I learned it from Bishop Agnello Gracious, who is now in Jalandhar. And he once suggested, when we were seminarians, I don't know whether he suggested to us or gave his own example, but I know this is the way he lived his life. He suggested that every 3 months we should go through our possessions and give away, listen to this now, this is beautiful, give away that which we have not used in 3 months. Now, I want to say this because you might say, Father, 3 months, that's too quick. Okay, let me do this for some of you. Let's make it 6 months. If you have not used something lying in your house and you've got it, it means you have no need for it. Yeah, if you had need for it, you would have used it. And don't console yourself with the thought that, hey, I need this for a rainy day, because a lot of us do that. Let me keep this for a rainy day. I want to assure you, when that rainy day comes, you won't be able to even find it. Yeah, you'll be searching all over and you'll say, I know I kept it somewhere, and you just can't find it. And here's the other thing, and I know you're going to laugh. You've always kept it in a safe place, right? And you can't find that safe place anymore. If you haven't used it, you don't need it. The next time you come across something you haven't used, give it away. Now, while perhaps this method may not entirely reflect the great generosity of the early church, it most certainly encourages us to make a beginning, especially if charity is not a habit. And here, without judging anybody, charity today has become very difficult. In the past, I noticed people were charitable. They gave in their will sums of money to the church for the poor or for the upkeep of the church. People were generous, even with collections made in church. They gave it freely. And while I still see generosity, I don't see it very often among young people, especially the millennial generation. Charity and giving must be caught and not merely taught, or even less lectured about like I've just done. But I'm stating a point. You know, where did I learn charity from? I learned it from my parents. I saw my parents give all through their lives. You know, we weren't an affluent family. As a little child, I craved for toys at children. I got nothing. Craved for toys at Christmas as a child, and I got nothing. You know, but no matter what happened at a Sunday Mass, my mother or my father, I forget which one, it was most probably my father, he slipped us a couple of coins or a 2 rupee note in those days to give to the church. As I said, they weren't particularly affluent. In fact, I suspect they barely got by without showing us their struggles, but they gave and they taught us to give no matter what. And I want to say this to parents today. First, bring your children with you to church. You know, I think Sunday Mass, this children's Mass, is the worst thing we've possibly done to families. We've destroyed families. Earlier, families came to Mass together. What is it that we do at a children's Mass that a parent cannot do? Yeah? And the parents at baptism are told that you are the first teachers of the faith. Yeah, not a Sunday school teacher, not a priest, you parents. I plan from June onwards to eliminate the children's Mass entirely and bring back Sunday family Mass at St. Stephen's. So that parents will teach their children what charity is, what love is, what instruction of faith is. We have in our parish Noel and his wife, and they bring Myron, this little boy who very often you might have heard me speak about him. And Diana opens the Bible and she'll show Myron the text. In fact, Myron now asks, he says, open the hymn book for me. And I barely suspect Myron can read it all, but that act of the parents bringing their child to the first row. And Myron was sitting through the 3 hours agony without even flinching. How does this child get it right? And the others need to have their toys, their water bottles, their snacks, and everything else in church. So, parents, if you teach charity to your children, if you practice charity, your children pick it up. Charity does not only begin at home, it must be taught in our homes by the examples we set. Just saying charity begins at home is not going to work. Teach by example. This can be quite a challenge in a day when today receiving far dominates giving. There are very few people I've seen who genuinely want to constantly give. I have received much love for the Love, Joy, Hope Foundation through many of you. And this is for the foundation. Some of you care for the ministry. I've received much. But by and large, I think today people want to receive more than they want to give. We may be a far cry from the generosity of the early church, and sadly, even our tithes, which is supposed to be 1/10 of our salary, our tithes to the church has now been reduced to 1%, and in some cases, nothing. But I do believe it's never too late to begin, and we need to teach this to our people. When we priests speak about money, some critics of the church say, "Oh, Father, that's all you'll think of." That's not true, at least not with me. So I want to encourage you to tithe. I have a friend of mine, Eldridge. and his wife Valini. Every year, Eldridge at his birthday will raise a toast to all his friends, and then he will talk about how the Lord has set on his heart to tithe, and he will encourage all his other friends at his own birthday party. Exactly what was mentioned today. With great power, the apostles gave their testimony here to the resurrection. Eldridge does it to giving in the church, and he is so blessed. I've seen it in his life. I've seen it in the life of his children. You know, at one time you had to dig deep into large pockets. Today you don't need to have large pockets, you just have to swipe a card. So go out and be kind to your church. Be kind. Be loving. Be generous. Open your cupboards today. See what is it that you don't need. Don't give old clothes. Don't give old clothes. There are people who say, Father, I've got clothes to give. They are as good as new. I always say, if they're as good as new, why aren't you wearing it yourself? Yeah, if they're as good as new. And the reality is, when they finally come, they are disgraceful. I have only one friend I know in all these years, Atul D'Souza, and his wife Chanchal. Every time he sent me his clothes, which were very good condition, they were washed, they were laundered, they were ironed and beautifully packed. And that's called giving. Even if you give something that you don't need, but not just, shoved in a bag. And don't put it down to the pride of the church or the pride of the poor, because that's not a fair criticism. My comments come from my experience. It's not to put anybody down or to run anybody down, but to share sometimes what the Acts of the Apostles and what our scriptures teach us very practically. Today I want to wish my dear friend Jacinta Murthy a very, very happy birthday. I know she's holidaying with her husband with her son, visiting her son in Melbourne. Happy birthday, Jacinta. You're an amazing person. You and Murthy have done so much for our museum. You believed in us. When I had nobody to set up the museum, you and Murthy believed and said yes. And your kindness of using your expertise for the good of the church in the restoration of our artifacts brought so much of joy to the Archdiocesan Heritage Museum. God bless you, and to all our viewers, may the Lord bless you, protect you, guide you, and give you a generous heart. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God bless you. You want to get in touch with me, I can be reached by WhatsApp on 98202 42151. If you're dialing from another country, from outside India, it's +91. Thank you also to all our donors to the Love, Joy, Hope Foundation, and for all of you who care for this ministry. Don't forget to like this video. Also leave a comment, and if you haven't subscribed to our channel, do that. Share these videos, share it. It's beautiful to share these videos. I noticed that we have now people who are viewing from several countries. When you leave your comment, always let us know where you are writing from. Because you have an Indian Christian sounding name, it doesn't mean you're necessarily living in India. And I'd love to know where our viewers really are from. God bless you, everybody.